All right. Okay. Let's see here. So today, I told myself that I wasn't going to go, I wasn't going to do any more of these, what's the word? Recordings and things on the patio, but I've decided to still go on the patio regardless. But I am so lucky. I believe I am extremely lucky to have. I'm going to call you world renowned pretty soon because you are just like, you know how people say, I remember when they were doing this and doing that. I find myself going there with you all of a sudden. I find myself going there because I'm like, well, I remember when. So I decided to end. Yes, sweetheart, you can go. You can go inside. He's always giving me problems, Ron. He's always giving me problems. But I decided, all this week I've been talking about like small business owners and just things that you think about when you're considering breaking free. Breaking free. And I know that you have broke free. You and I have talked about that journey. So first of all, hello, Mr. Ron Lewis Foster. Hello to you. Good evening.
Hello, Miss G. How are you?
Doing well. You have no idea. You are just, we'll talk about it. We'll talk about it. Okay. So first of all, would you just introduce yourself? You are an amazing photographer. That much, obviously, we already know. But would you just quickly share with us who you are and what you do?
Well, I am a photographer here in New York City. I launched out into professional photography about 5 years ago. It was just recently, and opportunity opened up, and I just happened to every time the door opened, I just went through boldly and was not afraid to do so. Or I should say I was afraid, but I say I'm still going to do it anyway. So that's pretty much what it was about. I've been published in National Geographic. I also been 2 weeks ago. I was published in Interior Design magazine. It was a big thing for me because I am also an interior designer, and I've been looking at Interior Design magazine probably for 2 decades. So to have one of my photos be published in one of their articles on a particular subject of equality was absolutely wonderful for me. And then now I'm waiting for another publication to go through my Iceland trip photos, and we'll see how that happens. And when it happens, everybody will know it's an incredible magazine. And and I'm just like I'm elated. So
We're elated for you. I was just saying yesterday, when family wins, everybody wins, right?
yeah,
Like everybody has their time, and maybe it's not your time, but that doesn't mean that you can't be on the sidelines or still in the rat race cheering on the person that just passed you. That's, because I'm cheering you on. I'm still in the rat race. I'm like 1 foot in, 1 foot out, trying to get myself together. But I just knew, I was like, if there's anybody I would love to share just some details and maybe some advice about breaking out and being fearless and bold, I would put you in that category. Because every time I look up, you're doing something else. Every time, I was like, golly. And people have actually said, have you heard about Ron? I was like, yeah, I'm just watching Ron just like shoot to the stars and do all this amazing stuff, living through you vicariously, clearly inspiring myself to try something new and get out there. So tell me, you made the switch 5 years ago. Was there a moment, was there a defining moment that said, this is it, I've got to do it?
Yeah, it definitely was a defining moment. As a matter of fact, I just got back from South Africa. I was really in Nigeria, and then I spent some time in South Africa as well during my holiday. And so when I got back, I took lots of pictures, and people were responding on Instagram, and oh, we love your photos, la 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 la, this is beautiful, and I really, I never really took my photography seriously, like, professionally. I always did it as a hobby. I have pretty much, I mean, walked around everywhere around Europe or in Africa with a cell phone, and I just photographed with my little cell phone. However, I did start out in photography when I was 16 years old, taking photos for our church. So the pastor, which became my adopted dad, needed a photographer for events that were happening at the church. He said, "Well, I see you like cameras," and I used to have a little these little, I don't know what little camera I used to take to school with me, and it was like some little Polaroid or whatever. And so he said, you want to get a nicer camera, and then you can use it around the church. And I said, "Oh yeah, I'll do that." So I ran out to the store, got a camera, and I started photographing around the church. And before I knew it, I really loved photographing. And the events and the people, the choir and the picnics and all the events that were happening. But the defining moment when I came back from Africa, I'm sitting here at my dining table, and I'm looking at a program on TV, and it's talking about these parables about the parable about the talents. And so the talent, it's talking about how the master goes away. He gives the 3 talents. He gives the 3 servants talents to do wherever they want with them. 2 of them come back, and the master is pleased because they gave an increase on those talents. And then the other one was, he was excited. He was like, "Oh my gosh, I have saved." He goes under the ground, he digs it up and says, I saved what you gave me, and I am now going to present it to you, master. And the master says to him, "Servant, I am not pleased." And I said, wow, that is pretty deep. That's pretty much me. Because, we live a life of safety. We say, oh, we go to college, we get our degrees, we get our education, we do the thing we were supposed to be doing, we want to do, and then we play it safe. We just take a good job, we get paid a regular salary, we don't worry about, doing anything to rock the boat, and just kind of live, just live our days, and pretty much it's a mundane, boring life. I mean, in some cases it could be exciting, but for me, it was a boring life. And I should say that because not all the way boring, because I was doing something I really loved to do. I was a visual merchandiser, and then I got to meet some incredible people like this tree here.
Like we were married.
Yes.
Technically, you are my first husband, but not my first husband.
He was my work wife.
Yeah, there you go.
We just had so many great times together. And anytime we go out together, I say, "Oh yeah, meet my wife over here." And so when I say, "Oh, my wife is getting married," they were like, "Your wife is getting married?" It was really funny. I said kind of like, "Oh yeah, she's my work wife." So, but anyway, long story short, like I said, I realized that I was the third servant. I was the third servant, not maximizing the things that I had in my being. I mean, I was an interior designer, and I wasn't really using it to the maximum. I was a photographer because I was coaching all the other people around me how to be photographers, and how to make it better and do this and do that. And but I wasn't doing it myself. And I was like, wait a minute. I have all these talents, and I'm not using any of them. I mean, I'm using them in pieces, but not really using it. So that point was the turning point. And I said, God, and for those that are, believers, and I said, look, I am just going to take this thrust in life and trust you. And I'm just going to jump out the plane. I mean, for those that don't know, I've gone skydiving. Just like skydiving, I said, I'm just going to take this leap, and I'm just going to trust you. You said to trust you, so I'm going to trust you. And I tell you, as soon as I did that, as soon as the words came out of my mouth, and I made the decision in my heart to say, I'm going to live my life.
Mm-hmm.
the doors start opening. It was amazing. I mean, literally, one door after another, and I just kept walking through, regardless of my fear. I kept saying, you know what? So what? You know what? The worst that can happen is that I have to go back and work somewhere else, or I have to
Yeah.
do whatever.
Yeah.
So I knew I wasn't going to be homeless. So I said, let me just, just do it and just kind of like step out. And at least I was hoping I was not going to be homeless. I didn't know what was going to happen, really. And so then I ended up saying, you know what? I'm going to start these wheels in motion.
Mm-hmm.
I started looking at how I would do photography. So it was something I really was passionate about and really loved. And then I had another friend of ours that was a mutual friend of G and I, Ashley. She's on the West Coast. And she said to me, she said, Ron, she calls me up one day and she's like, I hope you are going to do this photography thing seriously. And I said, what do you mean? She says, Ron, I'm going to kill you. And she says, the reason why, and she said this to me, and it was really, it was really also part of the turning point. She says, you have an eye like my father. And I said, what do you mean? She goes, well, my father shot for National Geographic. And, and I think, and I look at your work, I look how you see the world through your photos, and you have my father's eye. Well, and her father had just passed away. So when someone tells you that you remind them of their father who just passed away, it causes you to pause quickly and stop and reevaluate and think about what's being said. And it was really that statement that really kind of like, with all the other things that were happening, that really pushed me like really forward. And it kept me going forward. And so what I ended up doing was I said, I'm going to take every free class in New York City to learn my camera. I didn't even have a professional camera. I had a hobby camera. And I said, I'm going to learn the camera. I'm going to do everything I can to do this and do it all well. So every day there's a store that not too far from our job. And there was, they sell cameras and everything. And so I would go in every day to have, to look at this, wherever they were teaching. The one day they were teaching, light photography, shadow photography, portrait photography. Yeah. Every single day. And if it was at lunchtime, I wouldn't eat lunch. I would run across the street, go into their little workshop for an hour, and then sneak out and then go back to work. And so I kept learning. I said, I'm going to commit myself to doing that. And then by the end of that year, that was the beginning of 2016. By the end of 2016, I had handed in my resignation. I got on a plane.
I remember.
And I went to live in Africa for 3 months, and it changed like I said, my life has never been the same since I said yes to my life and who I am as a person.
Oh, I like that. I like that because, it's I say funny, but not funny. I was talking yesterday with my brother about like programming, and nothing against, education, because we need it, but there's this little facet where we kind of suppress the creativity of the children that we teach. And somewhere along the lines, we lose that idea of being fearful or just trying stuff. Like when I was a kid, I could do cartwheels for days. Never once thought about hurting myself. And now if I try, I keep thinking, I might break my neck. I'm not going to do the cartwheel, right? Because like there's all this extra thought. Now, truly, I might break my neck at this point, so I may not want to do those cartwheels. But the creativity, somewhere along the line, we kind of lose that creativity. Now, I want to take a quick pause and talk about this hobby camera because, in the photography world, there's this huge, big thing about gear. I still have my 110 that I received as a Christmas gift. I look at it from time to time. My parents gave it to me. It started it. It sparked it. And I have carried my camera from 12 all the way through junior high, high school, college, and then, we're doing this now, the storytelling thing. Does gear matter? Where do you stand with that?
Gear matters to a point.
Okay.
So, and I really believe that you can, if you are passionate about what you do and you have the skill set and you learned the basic skills of whatever that is, in our case, it's photography.
Mm-hmm.
We could take a we can take a, I mean, and you can't take a photo out with a paper bag, but we can come close.
You're good.
We can work hard to make it happen. And why I say that is that people are like, when I show them photos that I took years ago, when
Mm-hmm.
I was just a hobby travel photographer, and sometimes I'll tell them, I took this shot with my Samsung phone or back in the day it was the Palm phone or whatever.
The Palm Trail, the Palm
days. And
yeah.
people were like, no way you took that photo with that old phone. And my logic is that everything becomes old, but everything that was old took great photos. So you look at Ansel Adams, you look at Steve McCurry, you look at all these incredible photographers of the past, and or even in the 1800s, they used the tool that they had on hand. And if we took a photo with that gear and knew how to use that gear, we still could take great photos today. So I'm not someone that wraps myself in like, I gotta get this gear, I gotta get this gear, I gotta get this gear. I just want the gear that's going to help me do my job the easiest, the smartest, and with accuracy. So, for instance, I just got back from Iceland. That was a grueling experience, but what it did was it really shed light to myself. This is what it means to be a real photographer. You know, a lot of times I should say a real photographer, but a photographer in the field. You know, I'm in the field here in New York. I'm doing journalism. I'm in the middle of a protest, and that has its own thing. But as a landscape photographer and going out to do landscapes in nature, there's a whole nother skill set required. And some of it requires your physical being. Yes. And so climbing a volcano, a mountain that's adjacent to the volcano in front of it, which was called Theater Mountain. They named it that after the volcano erupted, because that's where everyone would go to photograph this volcano erupting in Iceland. But it was a 2,000-foot climb from the parking lot. It's a 4,000-foot mountain. And so I had to carry my backpack, which we had my camera here. I had my layers of clothes. The winds were a constant 50 miles an hour with gusts of 60 to 55. I had never in my life, I've hiked the Grand Canyons, I've hiked Mount Washington, I've hiked the Adirondacks, the Catskills, the Blue Mountains. I've hiked all over the place, but I had never hiked in high winds, a high wind condition. So I was terrified, and I'm hiking at 10 o'clock at night. So, which is a whole nother mindset too, because I'm hiking to get to my destination by midnight. So it was totally pushing me in ways that had never been pushed before. And every step was like, I came this far, I cannot stop now. I think if I die on this mountain right now, then it's worth it. I'm just going to go step by step. I'm going to get there if it takes me all night. And I eventually got to the top of the mountain and was rewarded with so many amazing photos.
Yeah.
The photos were, sometimes I can't even believe I took those photos. And, but while I was taking those photos, the wind was relentless. So for 2 hours up and 2 hours down, I was in 50-mile-an-hour wind, nonstop, and gusts. And at some points, I thought I was going to be blown off the mountain. So it was scary. But I say that because it was just like my journey in beginning to become a photographer, is that there's always going to be fear
Yeah.
of the unknown.
Yeah.
The unknown. I mean, you don't know what it is to be a photographer on a professional level unless you do it. You don't know the different genres that you can do unless you attempt to do it. So my mentor had spent time with me a couple of weeks ago when his work was on display here in New York. And I was showing him my work, and he was like, I'm disgusted. And he's like, the more I look at your work, the angrier I'm getting. And I was like, what do you mean you're getting angry? And he said, because a lot of photographers are fashion photographers, or just wildlife photographers, or just, fashion. Everyone has their niche. And he says, you are lucky to be able to do several niches, and you do them all well. And he said, it's pissing me off that you're not maximizing the gift that you got. And so you see how it keeps going, that you still kept challenging yourself to use those talents that you have that you don't even realize you have them sometimes. And like, people tell me, and they say, oh, I love their work, I love this, I love that. And I'm like, I mean, I don't take myself so seriously about what I do. I mean, I do take myself serious.
Yeah.
Don't take myself serious to get like an ego and walk around like,
I'm
like the man. You know what I mean? Because there's so many great photographers in the world, and I'm just one in a sand, like there's a beach of photographers, and they all are represented by sand, and I'm just one of those grains, and that's how I see it, or like a bag of rice. But there's so many great photographers in so many fields that I think for any photographer to walk around like they're, with arrogance, it's kind of ridiculous, because there's so many great photographers in the world. So,
well, so that brings up another 2 points. 2 points. One is learning, education, and evolving. Because you and I have both attended a couple of photography conferences or webinars and stuff, and I'm sure you've seen where people are like, photography is dead, you can't make money as a photographer, that's a dying thing, everybody has a cell phone, no one needs photographers. So in my head, people who have gotten to that point have lost, I think, their way, lost their creativity, and they haven't found a way to evolve even with themselves. Like they've hit some kind of wall, they have a setup, they do their setup, they call it a day. But there are so many other things going on. But one, I don't think photography is dead. Now, I have seen your home. Let me just tell you, if I had to do it all over again, I would move into your home. I recall the photo session. The fact we were able to turn in so many different angles and get so many different backdrops for your portrait session. And I was like, dang, can I do this in my house? Like, I need to set this up. But what was also telling, though, about photography and the need for photographers is printing your work, right? Yeah. So let's talk about printing your work first, and then I want to talk about the whole cell phone photography is dead thing. Printing your work, highly important, somewhat important. Where do you stand?
At one of my workshops, there was a gentleman, I forgot his name, but he was a New York City cityscape photographer. And he said in that conference, he said, if you are a photographer and you intend to be in the game a long time, he said, you need to print your work. And I didn't understand it at the time. I was like, oh, I got it on my cell phone. It's in the cloud, However, when you print your work, it becomes a reality. And I'll walk you. Let's see if I can do this without. I'll keep.
You can do it.
But I'm gonna move around my house a little bit. I'm gonna turn on my light so that it gets light, so you can kind of like. And I think I can turn this around. So this is what. Well, these are a lot of my works right here on the foreground. This is from Namibia, cathedrals, and so a bunch of things. But I want you to see this. I mean, like.
Oh, I hadn't seen that one.
This is my photo from I took in Africa, and I mean, look at that. I mean,
That's gorgeous.
some days I can't even believe it's my photo on my wall, or something like this one right here, which is like my first really
Yes.
cool shot. Kid was in Ghana at the slave castle,
Yeah.
and I took this photo, and now it sits on my wall. And so I have, my sofa's right there. Obviously, my animal prints, Ron. But the whole thing is that it's putting your work out there. This is obviously my home as I'm moving around, and you see I'm working. But again, there's more of my work on the wall. I really believe now that my work, I really get to understand my work better. And this is another one that people buy a lot on my Etsy.
Yes. Yes.
That's like my hottest seller on Etsy. So I say that to say you don't know your capabilities until you see your work on your wall. The wall is like the reality. It's like wow, my work is worthy to be on the wall. And and I have to say it's life-changing, because at one time your work was just simply work. You took photos, you did it, and it sat in your cell phone, sat in the cloud. And when you see it like posted, I mean, on a wall, like in a big picture, like one of my clients, and I'll show you my Nat Geo cat, the cat that made it to National Geographic. That cat, I did. It was really a 10-minute series of photos, and they all came out really beautiful. So one of those prints, one of my interior design clients, she bought it in like a 60 by 40 picture.
Ooh, that's huge.
And so she had me over to the house to sign it. And she says, what wall should it go on? She wanted to get my opinion. And the picture was huge, and it was done in canvas. And I had never, most of the time I send my work out and it goes straight from my vendor straight to my clients. I never get to really touch it unless they ask me to sign it. So this time I was able to go to her house, because she did, she lives in New York City. And I went and looked at the art, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is my work, and it's going on her bedroom wall, a huge wall with a huge print in canvas. And I had never seen my work in canvas. So, I mean, like in person. And I was like, oh my God, they did such a amazing job. I mean, all my clients always say it's a beautiful, that they're so pleased with the vendor I'm using. I had never seen it on that level. And I was blown away with my own, I was like, oh God, this is amazing. And so it's about, it really is, it's a humbling experience also. I mean, like I said, I don't really believe anyone should walk around with an ego. Yeah. It's really, to print out your work is such a humbling experience. And then for someone to purchase it and put it on their wall, it's something to be proud. I mean, it's a proud moment, but it's also a humbling moment. I don't know if that makes sense.
It does make sense. It makes a great deal of sense, because, I know for my home, I've always printed stuff. I still have all my negatives. All my negatives. Walls should be decorated. In my idea, and you're not really home until you put things on the wall. Your family, yourself, and then moments that matter to you. So art matters. And I know that photography is on the lower totem pole when it comes to art. I don't know if we have enough time to even talk about that. But because people are like, well, anybody can take that photo. It's like anybody can't take that photo. Like that's not exactly how it works. But we don't want to go down that path this evening. It's just too soon for that. We'll come back to that one. But it just gives you this whole other sense of pride, and the fact that you are a creative and you are creating. Yes. And then to see it, and then to have others appreciate it. Because, I'll do stuff. I'm like, well, that's pretty nice. But then someone else is like, oh my goodness, can I purchase that? I was like, well, Yeah, I mean, yeah, you know,
Yeah,
because
yes.
as far as we know, it's another something that we've done. So when I think about the printing part, and I know people are like, no, people don't appreciate prints. Everything's digital. Everything. People do appreciate prints. They have
Yes,
to
they
see it,
do.
touch it to truly appreciate it. But let's talk about camera phones. Let's talk about our cell phone. Because technically, everybody is a photographer. Everybody has a phone, right? Everybody's got a phone. You can take your pictures and all that kind of stuff. However, there is this thing again, and we're gonna do a little gear talk, where people say that cell phone photography isn't quite photography. I
Mhm.
mean, it can't do. Cell phones do amazing work. Like, depending on what
Amazing
phone
work.
you have, if you really dig into it, you can shoot in RAW if you wanted to. And there
Exactly.
are apps on your phone to help you edit those things as well.
Yeah,
Now, I
yeah,
know you teach a class from time to time. You teach a class from time to time
yeah.
about cell phone photography. So I know I got a feeling where you stand, but please share where you see this part of photography going.
Well, photography and definitely smartphone photography is here and is here to
Mm-hmm.
stay. And it's just another part of our arsenal as photographers. I am a
Yeah.
believer that the best camera to use is the camera you have. So if it's my cell phone, then I'm going to use the heck out of my cell phone to photograph my story. For instance, there was one evening they had the protest, George Floyd protests in August last year, and it was in the evening, and I did not want to take my big camera out because I was like a little sketchy. You know, when you get
Yeah.
that third grade says don't take out the big equipment, keep it home. So I said, you know what, I'm going to use my cell phone tonight, and I took some amazing journalistic quality photos, and I was able to send them off to Getty and a couple of other places. Um, and they were that good because I can do a whole photo shoot on my phone. I mean not maybe a commercial shoot, but I can do a good journalism like capturing a story, telling the story, getting the story out, editing it on my phone, and I can do that all like step by step, moving into it and get it done and get it out. And that's the whole key is get it done and get it out.
Yeah.
I can do that with my cell phone. Most people don't realize that it was my cell phone that I really started with as my photography. Because I would go to Spain, I would go to Africa, I would go to different places, and I couldn't always take out my hobby phone, I mean my hobby camera because it was too big, or it was, I mean,
Yeah.
it was nothing compared to the size of my professional camera, but at the time, and I would like to take a photo, and the only way to take that photo in, like, say, the marketplace in Lagos, Nigeria, where there's like thousands of people in the marketplace,
Yeah. Yeah.
you can use your cell phone and take them like covertly and take photos. And some of those photos were so beautiful. Or here's a story that was people don't even believe it when I tell them. And I've been to Iceland before I went to this trip. And about 4 or 5 years ago, I went to Iceland and I went to photograph the old volcano that had erupted in
Okay.
2011. So I'm climbing the mountain, climbing climbing this volcano, and I'm like, oh, I'm psyched. I got I got a new lens for my camera. I'm like, I'm psyched. I got everything. I'm ready. I got my gear. And guess what? I couldn't use
No
it.
battery?
No, condensation. So
Oh, snap.
I had never even thought about condensation. So what happens at condensation is that the air trapped in your camera on
Hmm.
the lower altitude is warmer. So when you go up into altitude, which we were climbing, I think that we were, it was, I mean, I think it was 6,000 feet we were climbing. So we went really high up. Um, and then what happens is the heat in the camera changes to moisture, and then next thing you know, all
Yeah.
the lens inside the camera is now fogged up. The mirror on the camera is fogged up, so you can't use the camera. So I had to, and it was raining, it was snowing, it was sleeting, it was hell. So all I had was my cell phone, and at the time it was a Samsung 6, I think it was, I was using. And I took half of my shots were done with my Samsung 6.
Huh.
And so some of the and people go to my website and they go, "Oh my gosh, those are amazing photos, la 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 la." And I go, "It was cell phone." And they just can't believe it. So and I've done that in Spain, I've done that in Italy, I've done that all over the world, traveling with my cell phone, and my cell phone has capabilities that my regular camera cannot do. For instance, night photography is much better, I think, on a smartphone than it is with my professional camera.
Yeah.
There's something about having so many sensors on your cell phone. It's able to read all the light sources and then calculate it all, because it's a computer, it's AI, and it comes together and creates a beautiful photo. Now the new cameras, which are now mirrorless, they now have the technology of the cell phone. So, I mean, it was a cell phone that kind of like pioneered to the mirrorless camera, which now you can go on the camera, sensors, and all that stuff. And but that's because of those sensors that was so high in the cell phone. So so I'm a believer of cell phone photography. Like I said, it was the beginning of my work. A lot of stuff that I've done was used with my cell phone. And I brought this out just to show the technology we're going. This is a flash trigger that is used with my cell phone. So what I can do is I have like a little button here, right? And it's tuned. There's a app that's connected to my cell phone, and I can easily just take this phone and then take this and just do a whole like setup and set it up, and I can take my angle and just go like this. If I want to do just their right side of the face, I can just photograph with that, and the trigger is right here. The white button is the trigger. So I can do a photo shoot with my cell phone.
I know Profoto recently put out, they recently had that app that helped you work with, a number of lights,
Profoto.
So
it's amazing.
I wouldn't even call it, like, when you mention people look at some of your images and they're like, oh my God, that's so great. I don't think the average eye can tell a cell phone photograph from something that was taken with a Canon or a Nikon or Fuji. I don't think people can tell. I really don't. I believe it could be in the editing, but in my head, an image is an image. Now, film is different. Film is definitely different. But for the most part, when people are putting this stuff out, it's like, I don't think they can really, like, people can't tell.
No.
I don't think the average person is like, oh my God, that's a so-and-so.
Well, also because now, if you take a photo in RAW here, it's the same as taking a RAW photo in your regular camera.
In your camera.
You have access to all of your colors. You have access to all of the levels of editing from your phone when you shoot in RAW. So, like I said, smartphones are only going to get smarter. Yeah. And at some point, they're probably going to have a connection to your eyeball, and you're just going to blink. And it's going to shoot out in RAW, and then you're going to take your photo, and you're just going to edit it. So I don't know.
It seems to be the thing, because I know for the past couple of years when they have introduced new phones, it hasn't been the phone itself. The entire focus has been, and look at this camera, and look how many megapixels, and look what it can do. Like, that's been their selling point. It hasn't been, oh, it can make phone calls and you can do. It's like, no, it's been about the camera now. So it's like,
I tell people all the time, you do not carry a phone. A phone
computer.
It's just, the phone is probably 10% of what it is. 10% of this is a phone. The rest of it is technology, and it's a computer, and most of all is a camera. And I've done lectures, and I've been fortunate because of the COVID. I've had opportunity to do a lecture with Touro College, Berkeley College, and a couple other work programs and youth set programs. So it's been really cool to be able to teach. You know, I also teach I do have teaching that I teach photography 101, but I also teach photography 101 for how to use your cell phone. So yeah, because people don't realize
you can just do a class on how to use your phone, and then there's a whole class on how to use your camera that's on your phone. Because people are like, how do you do that? It's like you just click right here. Because you know, again, most folks they use like maybe 5% of their phone. The rest of it are like, my phone can't do that. Yes, it can. All the phones do it. At this point, all the phones do it.
See, when I start my lecture off, I always tell everyone to go take their camera, go in, look at the setting called grid, turn it on, and then also after you turn grid on, this is going to be the success of your now new phone ability, picture camera, you know, abilities. And they're shocked. They're like, oh my gosh, is that all it is? The intersecting lines, rule of thirds.
Yes, the rule of thirds.
This basic. I mean, obviously it's more complicated on another level, but if for any layman or any person who wants to take a good photo, your cell phone is set up for perfection.
And businesses too. Like I was talking with a young lady, I was working with her to get her business off the ground. She's like, well, do I need to get a camera? It's like, your cell phone is just fine. You can use some white foam core board, get even like a desk lamp, and you have a place to do product photography. It doesn't have to be that serious, right?
Yes.
Like there are so many tools available to us. And I love how you exhausted free. I am all about exhausting free before you go into something else. But I do want to pick up on something before we run out of time. The idea of having a mentor or a coach. How important is that? Because a lot of us just want to go out here and wing it, but everybody needs some sort of coach or mentor to keep them on the straight and narrow, either for skills or even for running your business. How does your mentor help you?
Well, I have several mentors.
Yeah.
Same. I have several. I have my photographer. I have my photography mentor who has known me for almost 40 years. So he's been in the industry for as long as I've known him, and he's photographed with the best museums, fashion houses, all that stuff. So having him to kind of like bounce. As a matter of fact, before I even became a professional, before I made that leap, I also called him, had a long conversation. This is what I'm thinking about. What do you think? This is my skill set. What do you think? Should I pursue this? What do you think? And then he came to New York, and then my first professional camera was a camera I purchased from him. So it was really interesting to be able to go out and do that. But I also have a life coach. And I do have a life coach because it is so important as running a business. There are days that you feel like, did I make the right decision? Should I go back to work? Should I go and get a regular 9 to 5? Am I a fool? Have I lost my cotton picking mind? So it's a whole bunch of things that go through your head. It's like one time I was in the shower, and this is like I just got back from Africa. I was just starting the business. Now I'm getting the wheels going, and now I had to make a living. And so now I'm in the shower. I'm taking a shower, and the next thing you know, I'm like, holy crap! Have you lost your marbles? How are you paying? How are you paying the mortgage? How are you paying the maintenance? How are you going to? I started going through these hows, and I had already really set up things that I need to set up and leading into it. But my life coach called me. She must have felt it in the air. She called me and said, "Hey, Ron, what's going on? How are you doing?" And I said, "I'm having a meltdown in the shower." And she says, "What's going on?" And I said, I think I'm going back to work. I think I'm going to get my resume going. And she was like, "Your resume? Well, okay. Did you love your job when you were there?" No. Did you like the way things were going when you were there? No. Like, what's good? And she went through a whole list of questions. And she said, "Okay, do you love your life to now?" Yes. Do you love what you're doing? Yes. Are you living your true being and your true self? Yes.
Mm.
Are you pursuing your goals? Yes. Okay, it looks like your yes column is doing way better than your nay column.
Yeah.
She
Yeah.
said, and she was like, Ron, after you get out of the shower, don't go out in the street nude, but dry off, put some clothes on, get on your bike, go for a ride for the day, and say, today is just a break day. And when you have those moments, just take a break. So I would have never known that if I didn't have a mentor, as in a life coach,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
they have the ability to know what to do in crisis when you are like freaking out. So,
Mm-hmm.
life coach is number one. So I have my mentor, I have my life coach,
Okay.
and then I have my peer coaches. And what that means is that people like G, or I have people that we've grown together in this photography
Mm-hmm.
business, and I'm able to have discussions with them what I'm doing. Like this morning, I meet every Monday morning with one of my colleagues, and we just talk, and we just talk about photography, life, whatever.
Yeah.
And every Monday we come out with a beautiful outcome of where to take our businesses. Like this
Yeah.
today, we had an amazing one. So you need your peers to coach. You need your life coach. So that's an overall blanket of your business and your life, personal life. And then you need your photography coach, someone that knows the business that can take you to the next level. Like I said, my mentor gave me a kick in the pants when he was here. He says, you got to do, he says, you're not monetizing, and you need to start monetizing these items. And then he says, this is what you need to do. So that was really good having that little kick in the pants, because guess what? I started working on a lot of those ideas, and I'm working on them now. I started now I finally now have a store on my website, so I can now have my own control of my photography and sell it from my website. I haven't publicly launched it yet. It'll be launched at the end of the month, but I'm putting photos all my best photos are now going to be living in that store, and people can get it in 2 sizes on metal, and it'll go right from out of the box and onto their walls. So, but I wouldn't have probably done it if I didn't have that kick in the pants.
Somebody talk to.
Yeah. So
That is so awesome.
Yeah.
That, I mean, it's one of those things.
But gee, I do also have my fourth mentor.
Oh, well, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead. Throw it in there.
The fourth mentors are the silent mentors. They don't know that they're your mentors. For instance, there's photographers that I love, and I've had the opportunity to meet along the way. They're not my true mentors, pick up the phone, but they are excellent in their trade. Like, for instance, I love David Yarrow. I met him at a gallery show before I went to do my, start this whole career. And he said something that was really amazing to me. He said to the whole room, and it was just not just me. Like, it wasn't. He said the whole room, and I was like, this guy. When you go to his website, his minimum price on his photo is about $10,000 for his photos. But his photos are in the most amazing places in the world. But he's such a humble guy. He will say, I'm not a wildlife photographer. I'm not a landscape photographer. I'm not. He's very plain, just laid back. But what he said was something that it really took all the pressure off of me to become a photographer. And he said this. He says, if I take one good photo in a year, if I am lucky to get one photo in a year, then I've accomplished something great.
Oh, shoot, that's awesome.
I said, wait a minute, this guy got all kinds of amazing photos. Who's he kidding? What's going on here? What's he talking about? But he said, if I just have one photo, I've done, that was a good year. And it took all of the pressure off of me as a new photographer, that I didn't have to strive to be, every shot has to be great. Every shot has to be wonderful. Every shot has to be beautiful. I just shoot because I love to shoot. And if something beautiful comes out of it, that's a win.
Then you've done it.
Then I've done it.
Those ways of defining success, and is those kinds of thought-provoking quotes that can change the way that somebody operates, and really, as I like to say, put them on the right path. But it is there are people who inspire us. I know we both all follow like photographers or other persons, business leaders that inspire us and help us navigate the waters. But that is awesome. I like all four of those, Ron. I like all. See, I knew you knew something. I know you know a little bit about a little bit. You know what I'm saying? I think you know a little something. This is a little something there. Oh my goodness! You know what? I can't thank you enough for giving me this hour to share your story, because everybody has a story to share. I think of it really as just a testimony, right? Because we are all works in progress. We are all works in progress. No one has the end-all, be-all answer. But if we share it as a community and just really share it to help someone else get their journey started, or as you say, just living your life, doing you, then even that is a success. Even Absolutely. That. Just one Absolutely. Person. If you just touch one person this evening, you did it. You did it.
When you say that, there's a gentleman on my LinkedIn account, not LinkedIn, on my Instagram. And I say, he sends me these like, oh, I like this photo, I like that photo. And then I'll go on his page and like some of his stuff. And then one day he said, hey, thank you, big bro. I was like, big bro. And it was heartwarming, because it was like, wow, he's in India. He's a photographer in India on the other side of the planet. And he's excited about me taking the time to look at his work, or just kind of like leaving a drop or something, or just saying thank you when he said he liked something I've done. So we are all connected. We all need each other. And I'll close. I'll finish with this one thought is that I remember I have another mentor. He's I think he's a great guy, Paul Bronson, who's like, he's on LinkedIn, and he's like a big brother, little brother to me. And, but he's really, really smart, just really savvy and smart. And when he was saying something, and he said about Oprah. He used to work for Oprah. And then he said, everyone wants, and he'll never forget, Oprah did a talk show, a talk or something. And then after this talk, she says, how did it go? How did I do? And again, that's another one of those moments where you say, wow, wait a minute. This is Oprah. This is who cares? I mean, it's like, why was she asking that question? She is Oprah. She's like, oh, the sky opens up, the light comes down when Oprah walks into the room. But everyone needs validation. Everyone needs someone to say, that was good. That was nice. That was wonderful. You touched my life. You touched my heart. People need that. So it doesn't matter how big you are, how famous you are. We all, human beings, need it.
I like that, sir. I like it. And here you are just doing what you do, not knowing, but someone's always watching. Someone is always watching and like being inspired by us. So, what is that? This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it. You're gonna let your light shine. There you go. This little light of mine. Oh my goodness. We're gonna have to do. We will probably have to do another one, because there's so many topics we can talk about. We only have so much time. But thank you for sharing your story, giving us this great information, and hopefully somebody has been touched by what you've shared. Maybe somebody will take one of your classes and be better with their cell phone photography and go from here to there, and who knows, years from now, say, I watched that guy Ron, and he said. So you just never know. You just never know. But thank you so much.
Again, you can just go to www.ronlewisphotos.com. Everything is right there. That's my like quote unquote my dashboard. I mean, you want to know where
Yeah.
my Instagram, you want to know my LinkedIn, everything is right there. If you just go to
Yes.
ronlewisphotos.com,
Yes.
it's
And if you're
simple.
in the New York area, if you're in the New York City area, Ron does walks like once a month.
Oh,
Is it
we do
once
our,
a month you do
yes,
your walks?
yes, we do our photography meetup, and we just
Yes.
started. We just did our new one. Well, we just started meeting in person. That was last
Hmm.
week, and we had
Yes.
an amazing time together. Our next one is going to be. We meet every fourth Saturday at 2 o'clock in a different location in New York,
Hmm.
and that location becomes our backdrop. And what we've been doing now is also doing assignments. So, like five
Nice.
shot and people in shadows. And so I'm teaching. Well, I'm teaching, but I mean,
It is teaching.
if someone wants you to do a story, they don't want you in one shot. They got to have several shots to tell the story.
Yes.
So usually in 5 shots. So I put that into our how we operate, and the city wherever we are in the city becomes the backdrop. So yeah, so we have a lot of
Sweet.
fun. I mean, at first I started because I needed someone to play with, and now it's
Because I
600,
moved. I'm
and now,
sorry. I'm sorry.
and now it's 600 plus members. So
Next time we're back in town, I'll make
yeah,
sure to make time for all of this. We're coming and we're going, but we will make sure to make time for all of this. Thank you again, Ron. Love you dearly. Thank
thank
you
you, my
for
dear.
giving us
Thank
this
you.
hour and
Give the
sharing all of your wisdom.
hubby a hug and say,
I
bro,
will give the
you
hubby
did
a hug.
Give the hubby a hug. You guys are wonderful. I love what you guys are doing. So stay tuned. There's some projects coming up, and
Yeah.
I will keep you guys in tune because yeah, I'll be
Fingers
there's
crossed.
some yeah,
Fingers crossed.
yeah.
Sweet. Thank you all for joining. I think it's about to rain. It's about to storm out here. Like, hopefully not tornado weather because, it's that time of the year. Let me get myself inside. It's gotten really dark. I lost all my sun. All right. Talk to you.
Take care. Thank you so much for inviting me. Bye bye,
All right.
everyone.
Bye.